Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Have Your Say and this is for Global All Stars episode 8. So I'm actually travelling back to the UK tomorrow for a friend's wedding, so I'm going to be away for a while. So this video is a bit shorter than usual because I have to go and do packing and stuff, but I still wanted to put out a video. Also, thank you to everyone who sent me birthday messages recently. It was so lovely reading all of your messages and I did have a really fabulous day. So I'm just going to quickly run through the episode, get to the results of the Have Your Say poll, and I'll be talking about a little bit of drama to do with Nehellenia calling out a podcast for making some bullying comments, and Kitty turns off comments on her social media due to some hateful comments. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. So let's do a quick recap of the episode. So we find out that the main challenge for this week is that the queens will be doing a comedy roast. And I think it does need to be said that any comedy challenge such as a roast is obviously going to favour the queens who are first language English, so that is something that we have to acknowledge from the start. So I'm going to quickly go through all of the roasts and give my opinion. So first up we had Kitty Scott-Claus. I really enjoyed Kitty's roast. I think she had all of the jokes. As I said, there is definitely some advantage to being an English-speaking queen because obviously comedy is very inherently to do with language, but I still think Kitty did a really good job. She definitely nailed this for me and she was a great opener. Then we had Vanity Vane. I really appreciated that Vanity was trying to do something different by doing a song. I just don't think the song landed at all. It just didn't really have any jokes, so I could see what she was trying to do, but this just really didn't land for me. And unfortunately this was probably my least favourite of the performances. Then we had Pythia. I could see that Pythia was really trying. I just think that the jokes weren't quite landing and also her delivery was a little bit off. I think she should have gone down maybe the slightly more obvious route and maybe she was trying to do things that were a bit too intelligent and too clever and then they therefore just didn't really land. So unfortunately this was not my favourite roast. Then we had Alyssa Edwards. I thought Alyssa did okay. It wasn't my favourite, but I think it fell somewhere in the middle. She had a couple of lines that were okay, but I didn't necessarily think it was that great. Then we had Nehellenia. I really loved Nehellenia in this. I actually think she was possibly the best one. I think she was definitely at a disadvantage given that English is not her first language. And with that in mind, I think she did a fabulous job. Her jokes were funny. I really liked that she was leaning into everything. And yeah, overall, this was my favourite, I think, of everyone. Then we had Tessa Testicle. Tessa's was interesting to me because I actually quite liked some of her jokes written down, but then when she delivered the jokes, I just don't think they really landed. So I think maybe something got lost in the delivery. I think she kind of, for me, fell in the middle a little bit, maybe towards the bottom, but I don't think she was as bad as Pythia and Vanity. And then closing the show, we had Queen Kong. I thought Queen was funny. I thought she did a really good job. She was maybe my third favourite of the night, with Nehellenia being number 1 and Kitty being number 2. She did a really good job, and I can see why Kitty put her at the end because she was a good closer. Okay, so moving on to the runway for this week, and the category was Blow Me Away. So I'm just going to quickly show each one, and then at the end I'll say which was my favourite. First we had Kitty Scott-Claus. Then we had Vanity Vane. After that, we had Pythia. Then we had Alyssa Edwards. After that, we had Nehellenia. Then we had Tessa Testicle. And finally, we had Queen Kong. My favourite outfit out of these was between Pythia and Nehellenia. I thought Nehellenia's was just beautiful because of the colour, just looked so good. But then Pythia's, I really loved the draping of the fabric and how it moved in the wind, which was obviously a big part of the category. The other person I was really surprised with was Tessa. I thought that outfit was stunning and it just moved so well in the wind. But to me, overall, Pythia's was the best outfit. The winners are announced as Kitty Scott-Claus and Queen Kong, who will split the prize money. And the bottom 2 are announced as Pythia and Vanity Vane. Pythia and Vanity lip-sync to the song I Drove All Night by Celine Dion, and Vanity wins the lip-sync, so unfortunately Pythia is told to sashay away. Okay, so let's quickly go through the results of the Have Your Say poll. So question 1 was, who was the best in the roast? and we had Nehellenia with 65.9%, then Queen Kong with 24%, and then Kitty Scott-Claus with 8.3%. As I said, I agree. I really loved Nehellenia in this, and I thought given that English is not her first language, I think she should have been given more props for that and more credit. So yeah, I definitely agree that she was the best, and in my opinion, she should have won. Question 2 is, do you think the lineup order of the roast matters? And we had 62.6% for yes and 37.4% for no. Personally, I don't think the lineup does matter hugely. I think if you're funny, you're going to be funny no matter where you are. However, I do think that going first and last is quite important because I think it opens and closes the show and it sets the stage for everyone else. So I can see that those matter. But to me, if you're somewhere in the middle, I don't think the lineup hugely matters. It just matters if you're funny. Question 3 was whose runway outfit was the best? And we had 73.2% for Pythia, 14.5% for Tessa Testicle, and 9.7% for Nehellenia. I agree, Pythia's was absolutely stunning. As always, Pythia killed it on the runway. I loved the way it moved in the wind. I think she really thought about that as part of the category, and that was arguably the most important part of the runway this week. So yeah, Pythia's was absolutely stunning. Question 4 was, do you agree with the winner? And we had 79% for no and 21% for yes. And I agree, as I said earlier, I personally think Nehellenia should have got it because she was funny, and not only that, but I think Nehellenia should have won previous challenges and she hasn't been given that, and I think this week was a great opportunity for them to give it to her, also given the fact that English is not her first language and she was still funny. Question 5 was, if you answered no above, as in you did not agree with the winner, who do you think should have won instead? And perhaps unsurprisingly, we had 74.8% for Nehellenia and then 1% for Pythia. Question 6 was, do you agree with the bottom two? This one was quite split, it was almost 50-50, so we had 51.2% for yes and 48.8% for no. So moving on to question 7, which is related, it is if you answered no above, as in you do not agree with the bottom, who would you have put in the bottom instead? And we had 38.8% for Tessa Testicle, 6.2% for Alyssa Edwards, and 2.6% for Kitty Scott-Claus. I don't agree with this. I think that Tessa was somewhere in the middle. She wasn't great, but she wasn't bad either. And I think the same for Alyssa. She was fine. She had a couple of funny jokes. And I do not think that Kitty should have been in the bottom. I think some people just don't really like her because of her behaviour this season. And that's fair enough. But in this challenge, she did not deserve to be in the bottom. I do think that the bottom two this week, unfortunately, was correct. Even though I was really, really sad to see Pythia go. Because for me, I thought Pythia was going to make it all the way. Question 8 was, who won the lip sync in your opinion? And we had 81.9% for Vanity Vane and 18.1% for Pythia. And I do have to agree, Vanity killed this lip sync. She's really proven that she is the lip sync assassin of the season. And although I loved Pythia so much, I think I was kind of team Pythia for the win. I do agree that she did not do as well as Vanity in this lip sync. But I did appreciate that she was really trying. I just think that Vanity is just an incredible lip syncer. Question 9 was, who do you think will win the season? And perhaps unsurprisingly, we have 37.9% for Alyssa Edwards, which is kind of unchanged from last week, then Kitty Scott-Claus with 33.5%, and then Queen Kong with 24.7%. So this is the same 3 people from last week as well. And then finally, question 10 is, who do you want to win the season? And again, perhaps unsurprisingly, we have 69.1% for Nehellenia, then 10.6% for Alyssa Edwards, and then Queen Kong with 8.6%. And I agree, I think Nehellenia is likely going to get to the end, and I would quite like to see her win because I think it would be great for a non-English speaking queen to get a win. However, we'll see if that actually does happen, but I do think Nehellenia has definitely become the fan favourite of the season. But let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think Nehellenia actually has a shot at winning, or do you think that someone like Alyssa is definitely going to win? Okay, so moving on to a few of the comments this week. So one of my Patreon members, Shara, said, firstly, I feel sorry for Kitty Queen and Alyssa as they will be getting hate for their edits. Secondly, the non-English as a first language speakers doing a roast is incredibly difficult. And honestly, the roast should have been executed differently or not happened at all. And thirdly, the rigor mortis becomes more clear every episode. Kitty deserved top placement but not the win. Nehellenia deserved to win as she had the extra element of not being a native English speaker. They're giving her the Jan edit, I think. And as I said, I do agree, being a English as a second language queen is incredibly difficult for any challenge, but specifically a roast and comedy, that's so difficult. And I 100% think that Nehellenia should have won. But I do agree with what Shara said, that Kitty, Queen and Nalissa are getting a lot of hate. And remember that that's not their fault that they are English-speaking queens and the judges are favouring them. That's the judges and the producers' fault, not the queen's fault. My Patreon member Yael said something sort of similar and said, I was hoping this challenge would highlight some of the other queens, but again, Kitty's narrative was pushed front and centre. I was disappointed and bored. And on a similar note, my Patreon member Sue said, I did feel that the non-English as a first language queens were at a disadvantage in this challenge. A few of them didn't really know what exactly a roast was. The winner for me was a toss-up between Kitty and Nehellenia. Nehellenia held her own with the disadvantage of the language barrier. And this was a very big topic in a lot of the comments about the language and the disadvantage. And my Patreon member Ashley said, I love the roast challenge on Drag Race. It's the challenge that challenges the queen's humour and wit. I agree. The roast is usually one of my favourite challenges. I think it's such a good challenge. We haven't had a really good roast, I would say, in a while, but when there is a good roast, I think it can be one of the best challenges. However, this particular roast, I think only a few queens shined, and I think overall the standard was maybe not quite as high as previous roasts. But it does need to be said that doing a roast in a different language is incredibly difficult. And in terms of the comments for the Have Your Say poll, a lot of them were to do with the favouritism, which is a topic that has been ongoing throughout this season. For example, someone said, unfortunately, production had their mind set on sending Pythia home this week. It's kind of wild watching the judges being so blatantly rigged, like, oh my god. And there were also just a lot of comments saying that Pythia was robbed. And as I said earlier, I was kind of team Pythia, so I was really, really sad and kind of shocked to see her go home. But I do have to agree that out of her and Vanity in the lip sync, I do think Vanity did a better job. And overall, there were just a lot of people saying they're kind of over this season and they can't wait for it to be over because of the riggery and the favouritism. And I also agree, it's really sad to see the bad reaction that this season has had. And I just want to stress, this is not the Queen's fault. This was an excellent cast of queens that I think were kind of messed over by production and the judging, but I don't think in general we should take this season as a representation of their talent. Okay, so moving on to a little bit of drama that happened recently. So Nehellenia called out a podcast for making some bullying comments. So as we know, this season has not been very well received, and there's been a lot of accusations of favouritism and bullying. Well, recently, Nehellenia called out a podcast for making some comments about her, and this podcast has subsequently deleted the episodes. So Nehellenia tweeted saying, So, a podcast about Global All-Stars has been talking badly about me for weeks, and I'm fine with it, I accept it, because you can't please everyone. What I do not accept, however, is incitement to hatred. Saying that someone deserves to be bullied is disgusting. No one, and I mean no one, deserves bullying. And condemning any person only as a victim of certain attitudes is embarrassing. I never wanted to ride the wave of the victim, but I tried by every means to defend the others and their possible wrong attitudes towards me, asking loudly not to send hate. The role of the victim does not belong to me. My role is more that of a peace fighter. Proud of who I am, I won't be here to justify myself for who I am in front of and behind the cameras. But if we talk disproportionately about bullying, you will always find me ready to have my say. Sorry. Nehellenia then posted a clip from a podcast and she tweeted saying, from a podcast on a program like RuPaul Drag Race, from people in the LGBTQIA+ community, as human beings, inciting bullying and thinking that someone deserves bullying is disgusting. The bully is never justified. #StopBullying. And in the clip, which comes from a podcast, the two people in the podcast are talking about Nehellenia, and one of them says that Nehellenia deserves to be bullied because of the way that she was acting on the show. And it seems that someone must have sent this to Nehellenia and she then called them out about it. Shortly after Nehellenia posted about this podcast and posted a clip of the podcast, people quickly figured out which podcast it was. I'm not going to actually reveal the name of the podcast because they have since deleted this and apologised, which I'll get onto in a moment. However, people in the comments were posting the name and the link to the podcast, and they were encouraging people to go and send hate and leave mean comments. Nehellenia then said, "Please stop sending any type of hate. If I say hate is something wrong, I mean every kind of hate. So stop doing anything. The girl wrote to me and said she is sorry and that she understands that she deserves to be bullied, and this is something we can't say. We can move on." Shortly after this, the podcast episode got removed because it had also got lots and lots of mean comments, as well as lots of low ratings on things like Spotify, and then also rude comments on things like YouTube. And it seems like the entirety of their podcast for Global All Stars, every single episode has since been deleted. And just to make it clear, it's never okay to send hate, and I don't agree with what they were saying in the podcast, saying that Nehellenia deserved to be bullied. No one deserves to be bullied, and that comment was completely unacceptable. But unfortunately, some people took that very far, and they then started sending death threats to the people who said that in the podcast. And Nehellenia had to step in to tell people not to do that because that wasn't what she intended when she called them out. But unfortunately, that is what happened. However, the people have apologised and they've removed the episodes, so hopefully that is now sorted. And something similar sort of happened to Kitty Scott-Claus. So if you follow Kitty on social media, you may know that she's lost a considerable amount of weight and gone on a fitness journey between the time when they filmed Global All Stars and now. And Kitty has been posting updated photos of her runway looks now, and obviously her body looks quite different to how it did on Global All Stars. However, in Kitty's most recent Instagram post, she posted a photo of her runway from this week, and a lot of people in the comments started saying a lot of really mean, horrible things about Kitty and her body. For example, someone said, "This outfit looks horrible even with the weight loss." A lot of people also said that they were AI generated photos, and it looks like she lost 60 pounds, but on the show she's still big. Kitty responded to these people and said, "I've lost over 7 stone since we filmed the season nearly a year ago." And for any Americans, 7 stone is 98 pounds. Someone else commented saying, "Your neck is not that skinny, girl." And Kitty responded saying, "It literally is, look at the video on my story, hun." Other people also said that she looked good, but she did not deserve her wins. And Kitty responded saying, "We don't decide placement wins who goes home, doll. I ain't a producer, XOXO. And we can see that Kitty at some point had to limit the comments on the post because she was getting so many hateful comments. And people were saying things like, "Kitty is so overrated, wasn't funny at all," or someone called her unpleasant and mean with puke emojis. Someone also tweeted a photo of Kitty's runway from Global All Stars and the updated one, and someone said, "Clearly a diet consisting of nothing but hatred for Nehellenia does a body good." And this is obviously a reference to the joke made during the roast on All Stars 2 about Roxy Andrews. And Kitty responded to this tweet and said, "I used to spend ages making and posting side by side to show off my weight loss. You guys are the best." And in the comments, some people started saying, "Nobody loves you, girl, you're trash." And Kitty responded saying, "You're obsessed with me and I love it," which is a reference to Gemma Collins, which is something that she said on Big Brother, and Gemma Collins is the person that Kitty did on Snatch Game on her original season.
I don't think about you at all.
I think you do.
I don't. You're obsessed with me. And I love it.
And so in general, please remember that even if you don't like a queen or you think that they did something wrong on a TV show, it's really not okay to start sending mean comments to them. I've also seen some death threats to the queens on social media, and that is completely not acceptable. You can enjoy the show passively and have your own opinions, but you cross the line when you start sending hateful messages to the queens. So please be mindful of what you post, and that includes in the comments on this video. So there was a very quick Have Your Say for Global All Stars episode 8. Let me know if you liked the roast challenge, and do you think it's fair to do a roast challenge on a season with queens who don't speak English as a first language, and what do you think would be a solution for that? And if you'd like to get early access to my videos as well as have your comments featured in my Have Your Say videos, please check out my Patreon and consider supporting me. It goes such a long way to helping support my channel and I really appreciate it. And I'll put a link to my Patreon in the description. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to all of my Patreon members who are amazing and support me every month. Thank you so much for being part of my Patreon. I really appreciate it and I really do love my Patreon community. You are all legends. If you liked this video, please remember to like and comment on the video to help tell the algorithm that this is a great video, and make sure you hit the subscribe button because it really does make such a big difference to my channel. Thank you for watching and I hope you'll join me again in future videos. Thank you, bye!